We picked up Link's new vehicle that we're going to be driving for a while. We picked up Link's new vehicle that we're going to be driving for a while, and we realized that maybe, I don't know if we actually said this, but if T&O have only been talking about it and not sharing it with you, but did we talk to you all about an actual living force being here on this garden?
Oh, I don't think we've talked about it a long time. T's talking about...
some time ago?
Yes, we've talked to you about the so-called, quote, Prince of Evil, or Satan, or Lucifer. Right. And shall I talk a second about it?
Sure.
We've been reminded so many times lately. You know, every time you think that you... well, let me back up. When we began to understand genetics better and used to see, and we're beginning to see things more as the natural evolutionary process of improving an uncivilized garden, that you're also tempted to forget the real significance of a negative force and an actual negative individual who uses the creatures of this garden at this stage as his slaves, so to speak, and will attempt to keep them in ignorance in order to keep them from reaching their potential, if you can understand that. And that as long as you do the things that are keeping you ignorant or keeping you a slave of a certain seemingly developed but yet realistically undeveloped level, then you get rewarded by things going well and no real difficulty, and things go smoothly, and you can flourish in the world, you know. And usually it's the ones who do it the best are the ones who actually have become to believe that they are wise and they are no longer naive, are victims. And they've usually then learned how to manipulate the ignorant and justify it by saying that they're just helping the ignorant. Do you understand? It's like the market. Everything operates on that basis. The ones who are really wise at the top, who make the money, and they see the masses as the people that don't have any better sense, and they feel sorry for them, and they even justify by thinking that their efforts assist them. Well, while we were so caught up in genetics for a while, I think I did more than T. I began to lose sight of the reality of the creature himself on the negative side and his helpers and how his forces work against us. Because what he would have us believe is that that's just the natural The way he can hide from us is to have us believe that when things don't go our way, it's just because of the primitive conditions, and it's just the natural course of things. Do you see what we're saying? And yet, T and I keep seeing things that or that humans will do, the same things that we're doing, and don't run into the obstacles that we run into, and things go so smoothly for them. And we put so much effort on some of the things that seem to be so simple, and they go against us. And which, in a sense, did us a tremendous favor, because it reawakened us. And here again, I say more Doe than T, because she couldn't quite accept that this was just the natural forces of primitivism. And but like on dealing with this car, there were certain aspects that we told you we were real pleased with, because the way that they responded in trying to do something. But from the moment they made that decision, one thing after another has tried to cause problems with that car, almost as if this force has said, I'm going to see. It's like I was busy doing something else, and something good happened for you, and it was my mistake, and so I'm going to have to dive in here and see if I can't make it, turn it all around. Now, can you understand that?
Let me add something, because
Sure.
if we can slip in real quickly, in other words, this decision happened very fast, and it was almost like, hurry up and make your decision before anybody finds out about it. You know, talking about the forces. And if that happens, then things go our way. This is what, like looking for a house, if we make a decision about a craft right away, then forces can't come in to make things go bad for us. In a sense, I think this is what happened. And then once they found out that we got such a good deal, then they were going to make it miserable for us.
See how much they could do to go against it. Now, we don't feel sorry. They did us a favor. They did us a tremendous favor, because it reawakened us to the reality, and they did you a favor as well. Because we'll come back to the car thing in a minute, because that's really insignificant. The significant thing is recognizing the reality of this force and of how it works. You know, like I think you could have, or we could have even innocently misled you, and you could have fallen into traps. Like, let's say that when your vehicle is acting up and you just start blaming the genetic structure of the vehicle, or you blame the primitive characteristic of the vehicle, all of which is right to a degree. But if you want results, you've got to cover one other aspect. Like, in other words, reprogramming doesn't always do it, even though reprogramming is something you faithfully have to do. Understanding what the genes are trying to do in a primitive condition is important for you to understand, and you work on that premise. But there's one premise that you're overlooking, or that you could be overlooking, that we weren't overlooking some time ago. And that is to say to that force and his workers, or whoever might be present, causing you difficulty, whether it's trying to convince you that the lower vibrations your vehicle is experiencing are just genetic things, you can't do anything about it. He would love to convince you of anything that would make you feel incompetent, or make you feel like you can't improve beyond this point, or to make you feel disappointed in yourself, or to go on an extreme downer. So the one other thing that you've got to continually use as part of your treatment against symptoms is to say, get out of here, as to a real living mind and force. It's just like if Sue Nodi says something to me that puts me down or is negative, and I say, I'm not going to listen to that. Get out of here. She may come back with, well, you're going to listen. I'm not going to listen to that. Well, it's high time you listen, because you put me in this, but as soon as Sue Nodi learns that I'm not going to listen to it, pretty soon she dies down and leaves the room. You see what I'm saying? And the same thing happens to the negative force. If you, with force, let that force know that you're not going to listen to whatever it is that it's dishing out to you, it may not stop instantly. Sometimes it may, if you're forced with enough. But if it's like you find your own vehicle when you're dealing with another vehicle, you find that the vehicle wants to just lash out just one more time. I'm not quite satisfied with the ugliness that I've presented you with to this point. Let me get just one more remark in there or comment to make you really feel bad, because then I'll feel so much better. You know, and that's the way this force attacks you. So, and the thing is, you should be wise to how that works. And you should never take for granted that there is not a living mind actually sent to, as a messenger is sent to discourage you. You all are extremely significant to the lower forces because you are making a very significant contribution in the forward motion of this civilization. And the more you know and can deal with the lower forces, the more automatic understanding and information you have of the next level. Do you understand that? The more you know the negative and learn to deal with it, the more of the positive information, next level information, is readily available to you. It's almost more important for humans out there to know the reality of a negative force than it is for them to know what God is all about. Because if they know of the negative force and the reality of the negative force, they already wouldn't be labeling it negative force if they weren't aware of a good direction. They wouldn't see it as a bad direction. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's one of the tools that the negative force uses is to teach intelligent men, even intelligent so-called religious men, to begin to mute the idea of a real Lucifer or Satan or devil. That's what only primitive people believe in. And so grow up and realize that it doesn't exist. You see what I'm saying? But it's okay to believe there's a God. Why would he have you believe that? Because he would love to be your God. Do you follow that? He would love to be your God. Now, but little things started happening on the car. I got to tell you one that we had seen on some of these cars a little insignificant little chrome plate that went at the top of the grill, that went to the little ornament and went across there, and it was just a little thin, insignificant piece of chrome. But since we'd had so much trouble on the white car with paint chipping, we asked them if they would mind putting that plate on there. We thought they knew what we were talking about, but it turns out, and instead they put a plate across there that looks like a cat house. You know what a cat house is? You know what a cat house is? You know what a pimp's car looks like?
Sure, they know what a pimp's car
Well,
looks like.
a cat house is a prostitute house, okay? That's the slang for and you know what a pimp's car looks like? Do all of you know what a pimp's car looks like? It's one that is ornamented so that it looks ridiculous. Well, here we thought we were going to get this little plate, and here
You're cutting corners.
Okay, fill them in.
You're cutting corners because they put on one, like you said.
Well, I was going to tell him that. Go ahead.
You were?
Yeah.
And they cut off, there's a chrome piece that goes down the middle of the hood, and they cut it off right before it got to the chrome piece.
There's a chrome piece, you know, that goes from the windshield out to the end called a little air splitter.
And they brought it to us and was so proud of it, and it was just flapping.
In other words,
You know, the chrome piece was just, if the wind got it, it would just get under it and blow it up and hit the windshield. So we said, oh no, we can't accept that. And the salesman said, oh no, we can't do that. So they said, well, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. So they go back and get this bigger funny, oh my head. Well, then they put that in there. And we looked at it, and with a gold
ornament
on it, you know, with the crest. And, you know these horns that they put on cars? You know, those big, long horns? That's what it feels like. And we thought...
It's not that bad, but it
well,
feels...
that's the first reaction, you know, and we...
But now wait, because when we ordered that little piece of thing there, we thought that we didn't know it would mean they would have to cut off that little chrome strip in order to put that thing there. And the plate they put originally there was not what we had asked for. I think where we made our mistake is what we thought they were going to put on was the kind that was the standard equipment on this car a couple of years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago.
Which they said they could do.
And but that we weren't communicating. All we knew was how to describe
we
what
were
they wanted.
Communicating the first day, first few hours.
Yes,
and then
that's right. After that, then the forces came in and everything went wrong.
But they've mutilated the front parts. We can't even go back to what the original was. We have to stick with that.
In order to return to what it was, they would have to tear the strip off, the chrome off that goes all the way up the hood, and take the thing off that they've already installed, which has, I'm sure, done damage to the paint. They would have to repaint the hood and re-put that strip and re-put original equipment, you know, which is so we haven't gotten that far. We've just, we still left out some. Now, let's go back. First, it came out with this heavy plate, but it was kind of flush. But the strip that came down, they just cut it off, like he said, and it was completely exposed, just that cut off part. Plus,
like
there was a space about that long where it wasn't braided down to the hood, so it would have just flopped in the breeze. The Amarillo wind catch it, and it would have just popped off. And then, when we sent it back, they put on, like he said, this heavier thing. And then the part under it that was to match it, they had moved down on the first one they had applied, but forgot to move it up to match the second one they applied. So the space between this top part and the lower part was a big old gap like that where you could see all the screws and brads. And they said, oh, I didn't see that. Goodness, we were just trying so hard to do it fast so you could get out of here, and we forgot to do it. Yeah, and so they went back to lower it, and they couldn't to raise it. And now this is just an example of one thing that happened. This is just one thing. We won't even bother telling you.
We were supposed to pick up the car after lunch, which is afternoon. We were the last. They were closing the doors when we got it yesterday.
And they were staying over 20 minutes after they closed. We were there at 6:20.
And when they took it out, they still hadn't fixed it.
No.
And the sales manager came out and said, I'm not going to let you accept that, the way they did it. He said they messed it up. He said, I want you to bring it in when you have time.
Someday when you can leave it overnight, bring it back.
Just raise that little overnight. But that's just one of the things. But the point of it is, after we left and got the car, we were wondering what else is going to happen, you know. And it has a radio in it, so we turned the radio on, and every time you hit a bump, it
or a truck passes, it picks up the noise of the engine.
But that does it better,
you know?
because I mean the radio, we listen to the news, and that's about it. But the point of it is, you know, why does it have to be broken?
Yes, it's supposed to be a finer radio in it, and yet it picks up the noise of the engines. There must be some resistor or something that's not working, that should be working, to do that. And we have a couple of tapes that we listen to, like health and some of the things that we've given you all. And if we want to listen to a tape, we stick it in a little tape deck, just like you have on O-Car. You have a tape deck on O-Car? And it came with a tape deck, and we stuck a tape, and then it wouldn't go in.
Well, they gave us a tape.
They gave us a tape that came with the car.
Maintenance and all that stuff, you know.
They, in other words, it's the owner's manual on tape, so that you can go down the road and listen to them telling you everything about the car on tape. Comes with the car, and so we thought, well, we'll stick it in and listen to it, and you couldn't stick the tape in. It wouldn't accept the tape. You could only get the tape halfway in. And it was just one thing after another, and we thought, now, even worse than this, see, these are all physical things. Then, worse than this is what went through T's and those heads individually when we got back to our craft last evening and thought what fools we have been. Now, this is what the forces were telling us. What fools you were to take this deal that was offered you to switch cars. Because you're not going to be happy with this car. It's going to be a worse nuisance than the one that you had before.
You didn't need it. You had a car. All you had to do was get that other one fixed and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, this is the bombardment. And
That's right. It has leather seats, which we wouldn't, if we had ordered it on our own, it hadn't been this kind of arrangement, we probably wouldn't, if we'd had a choice, wouldn't have done it because we felt like the other was cooler. So we thought, you're going to be real uncomfortable with those leather seats. And you've already seen an example of how nothing's going right with the radio and the grill, and it doesn't look right with that. So, in other words, and I thought I was getting this bombardment all night, and T didn't want to tell me that she was getting it all night, and what a horrible mistake that we had made, until we got up this morning and decided, little by little, we began sharing with each other what we had had to deal with during the night. Now, we're really thankful for this experience because it restored our recognition of the reality of how these forces work against us.
I think it was used in that way. Now, I bet you, and I don't need to have an answer, but I bet you some of you all have been bombarded with it also. Now, the
you
things
even
that...
with the car?
With the car,
yes,
right?
Probably so.
Because the one thing you've got to do, or we hope that you want to do, and that is know that T and don't care about anything other than what we need to make this move go forward. Okay? I mean, our task go forward. We do know one thing, that we need a car that's dependable. We should have gone sometime, as soon as you all got up here, we got instructions to go somewhere. And as soon as we got that instruction, we started having trouble with the car. It's just like they were using it to stop us from going. And so we would take it over to the place to get it fixed, and they would say they would have it back by that evening, and they would keep it, and they kept you wouldn't believe us if we told you that as many times as we went over there to look at the car, not a soul was working on it. It was sitting in the shop with the hood up, nobody around.
And I keep going to the service representative who was assigned to the car, and I said, there's nobody over there working. Because we'd come in, and he'd say, they're doing this on it, and they're doing that on it. And I'd go, I said, there's nobody there at the car. I did this repeatedly. And he would say, oh, yes, they're there right now. And I said, well, you can walk down there with me. And then he'd wonder, well, what in the world is going on that every time I send your car to some stall to be worked on, nobody shows up to work on it.
Well, the thing of it is, when we started having trouble with the car, and we even mentioned to Ladotti at one time that we thought we were beginning to have one thing after another happen to the car, and we thought we might trade it in. And then we got to thinking, no, because if we got the one little thing fixed, and we thought, well, we didn't need to, because we felt like it was still a good car, and to tell you the truth, I liked it a whole lot for a car. And but then when this last thing, when we got instructions to go, and we couldn't go, then we realized we presented it to the next level. We didn't decide it on our own, and evidently they fixed it up for us, so we could slip in the back door, and we could get something taken care of quickly. And we feel like even though we had a delay all day, we set a goal to go on the trip tomorrow. Now, even though there are little things that are wrong with it, unless something really big comes up, we're not going to let it interfere with it, and we are going to go tomorrow. And we're going to be gone until we accomplish what we're supposed to do. And in a sense, this is why we're over here talking to you right now, because as soon as we get the car, it's getting some film on it right now. As soon as we get it, then we're going to finish up some last-minute things and prepare to leave first thing in the morning. Or maybe tonight. We don't know. It depends on how soon we get through with everything. But the most important thing is, if you all are bombarded with whether anything about tea and dough and this car or anything that you have to deal with your own personal vehicle, then see if you can't just hear some little voice talking to you. Now, don't listen for a voice, but I mean,
see if you can't recognize that that's what it is.
Separate it from it and run it off, just like you would somebody who was standing there talking to you. But what's so bad? You can't walk away from them. You can't leave the lab like you do if you're having an encounter with somebody in the lab. In other words, they will go with you wherever you are. And but what you have to do is just tell them to leave you alone, and you've got to mean it. In other words, you might enjoy listening to it, because a fury can build inside of you, and before you know it, you're mad at somebody over a little innocent remark that they made to you, and you go back to them and say, I don't appreciate that kind of remark you made, and yet maybe all they said was, it's a nice day today, isn't it? And but to you, because it got to 100 degrees, it wasn't a very nice day, and I don't know why you said that to me. You're just mine. And this is how they will, how it will build up over nothing. And when that happens, be aware that it's time to step in. Try to be aware of it before then. But once you recognize that you're getting riled up over practically nothing, then start running it off and see if they won't go away. But if you like that feeling, they're going to hang around. If you like to feel that fury, and you like to get it off, express it to somebody.
Yes, or if you like an excuse to have some beef, or to be disturbed about something, whether it's a classmate or something that T and Doe might say, or I'm sure that the lower forces would have you, they have tried many times to have you lose faith in us, either one or both of us, many, many times. And I'm sure you're used to that voice, and one that would have you see us in a light that would interfere with forward motion.
Well, we know that you are bombarded with that because we are bombarded with it also with you all. You see what I'm saying? It works both ways. They get us from both sides. It's almost like so-and-so can't learn, and we say so-and-so can learn. You see what I'm saying? In other words, it's just like a teacher who would say to a parent, Junior can't learn how to read. And Mama says, Junior can learn how to read. And I'm not going to listen to you say that to me. And Mama takes it into her hands and teaches Junior how to read. And this, in a sense, is what you do. You have to become strong enough that you overcome this force. And in the process of it, you become strong. You don't listen to these things. If we did, none of us would be around, and we would not have accomplished the task. Fortunately, we know this more than you all know it, and that's why we're still here. It couldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? Because you all would have had to drop away, but I don't think you would have. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stayed as long as you have. You see, can you all understand it? In other words, you are stronger than the ones who have dropped away, or you would not be sitting here. Y'all don't believe that.
Yeah,
Sure. But it makes sense.
Your mind persisted
even though you had
resisted.
Problems, even though you had problems with every day, probably 100 times a day.
No matter what your problems add up to, they aren't as significant as the fact that you chose to continue in forward motion. That's the most important figure you have in your favor right now. You understand what we're saying? It's because when the odds seemed almost intolerable, and they still seem intolerable to you at times, I'm sure, and they will continue to seem intolerable to you until the moment we leave, because that's the ammunition that the forces can use. They would like to have you accept the intolerability of your effort. Isn't that right, Nino? Already?
What's that wondering when we're talking about you went back and you were having all these negative things taken, and with myself, I know that when I just have negative things that it's really going on in things and outside force, but how do you determine? I mean, how do you know it's not the next level talking to you?
Because they don't talk negative.
No, we know that the next level force never talks negative.
So they wouldn't say something like that to you, like
no.
You know, drop the wrong card out.
No.
This is a mistake.
It wouldn't have happened already.
I don't know if you can understand that.
It would have never happened if the next level didn't want it to happen. In other words, our concern is to do the task. And
the next level ultimately doesn't really care about things like that. They would like for you, for all of us, to have things as pleasant as can be made pleasant for the time we have left to do that. They would have it be as pleasant as long as we don't twist it around to be in another direction. Now, if you really knew T and Do, you would know that there's nothing that could be made pleasant enough on this planet that we would find it pleasant. They don't make a house, a climate, a city, a car, a piece of clothing that we would find pleasant. And you can say, well, that's just because you become bitter old folks because you stop doing all the human things. You can say you can listen to whatever negative thoughts could come in. Or you may disbelieve us. You may say, well, you just say that to us, that you really do like those things, or you wouldn't have them. Well, all we can say is, well, then you don't know us. And we think that we're naive enough, I hope not, to think that you have also learned that nothing in this world brings you any pleasure. That even the things that you thought could still bring you pleasure, that even when they're offered to you, it's, well, why doesn't it taste like it used to? Or why doesn't it bring the pleasure that it brought to you when you were of a more innocent level of development? But in a sense, it's so great that it doesn't, because it shows that how much mind is present. And we've got a certain amount of acceptance we have to do when we realize that we're not going to get anything of the quality that we would have it from humans at this level of their development. Now, I said to a degree we have to accept that, but we do not, on the other hand, we don't accept it because it's not our standard to accept it. We have to continually push because we know that it's not right. We know that there should be a better house, a better climate, a better city, a better mechanism, a better attitude between people. And if we accept it, we fall into another trap of just going along with the stream like the humans do, who become a part of that programming and stop resisting it. So we don't accept it. We just know that it's characteristic of this level of development. But we would never accept it. We can't accept it. We find every product of this level of existence almost intolerable. And but we tolerate it because the next level sent us here on a task to be endured. The more next level mind comes into your vehicle, the more everything of this level will be intolerable to you. But you can't find it intolerable in a human way. You've got to have it intolerable only from a next level viewpoint.
I guess I was feeling, when you were talking about that, I think I have been feeling like I've been grateful for the fact that this is a nice house, we got a great pool, and couldn't ask for anything more. And something in me is saying, I don't know how to explain it. I just, I'm grateful and I'm happy we're here, but it doesn't mean that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It shouldn't mean anything to you.
I thought, well, I'm just not feeling grateful on that.
Starrett, if we had our way, we would have the class having to stick out what's left of your time here in the finest mansion that could be found on the surface, with the finest of everything that you could have. And you know that if we gave you the finest that is available at this time, they would be just as unsatisfactory as you find this place right here. Because they don't make them. You might find a little better view, and then you say, Dennis, that view used to mean something to me. I must have outgrown views. What's happened to me? Have I become cynical and sour? You see what I'm saying? We would have you have the finest. But it's right to be appreciative. Now, we try to make whatever circumstance is available to us when we feel like we should be in a place. We try to make it as pleasant as we could, like this house. This isn't a super-duper house, but we've tried to make it as close to that as we could because it's the only place we can find 5 baths. And 5 baths are very important to us. They are. It's strange when you get down to what's really important to you.
We do appreciate the bags. Well, we hope that this time for you will it will be productive for you, because if we're bombarded, then you are bombarded, right? And so we hope that this tape will help you to fight off what could be coming your way.
Right, we're going to have to do, yes, because we've got a lot of little chores to do before we take off.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Let's see how.
Okay. Links asked that Jan Odie and I share a couple of extra things about what they were just talking about and how the Okay, Links just asked us to share a few additional things about what they talked about with us today. And one of the points was that how the lower forces could take advantage of our weak areas and our genetic weak areas. Right. And we, as individuals, know what those weak areas are and can be aware of it, so that when one of those weak areas shows its face, that we can be aware that a lower force will have an opportunity to magnify that and use that against us. And how we can be more aware of it is that we know that we made a list of our weaknesses, and that when any of those weak areas show up,
to be on guard,
because we know that the lower forces can step in and use that to their against us. Link said that they can almost get a readout of the weaknesses of the vehicle. Okay. Okay. Another thing they said is they gave us a clue to recognizing when something is a negative, a lower force, or something from the next level, and that one of the clues is that the next level doesn't ever think in terms of negatives, or it wouldn't translate in your mind that you're doing something bad or that you're not able to get past something, and it wouldn't have you go on a downer in any way, but it's a negative force that would do that, that would have you believe that I didn't do this right and I can't do this right and I can't get anywhere from it. But the next level would always say, oh, well, this is a good opportunity to go from here to see what I can see, and now I've learned from it. I made a mistake, and I can just improve upon it. And it was a good opportunity for me, but the lower force would turn that around into a downer for you. So you can know that it's not next level mind. If you do something and then have thoughts that you did it wrong or whatever, that's not your next level mind. Okay. Oh, and they said that Lynx corrects us and shows us what we've done wrong, but they've said over and over that that's only because it's part of the classroom, part of their task in the classroom. But that in the next level, nothing like that, correction like that wouldn't occur. Okay. They used another example of how the lower forces worked with this house, and that they felt that they can try and do things that other humans try to do, and the humans could do them without any trouble, have them done without any trouble, but when Lynx tries to get something done, it's just there are so many obstacles. So they felt that a lot of the subcontractors that came out to work on the house wouldn't treat other customers the way they treated Lynx, like with the delays and everything. They said one example was an electrician that just called today who was supposed to come out before we all even moved in, and he called to say he could come out and do his work now, but he offered no excuse, no reason for being 3 weeks to a month late or anything. And this is an example of how the higher side and how the next level wouldn't use things in a lower way, because even though there was delays and everything, T and Do were grateful for the opportunity that came from that, because it helped them to zero in and see more that there was a lower force working and recognize it for what it is again, because when we were working so intensely on our lessons with genetics, they had kind of put the aspects of the lower force interfering with us in the back of their minds, and it wasn't in the forefront so clearly. But when all these things happened with their car and the delays with the house, it helped bring it to the surface what it is we really have to work against, what we still have to work against. And so they were grateful that all these delays happened, because it made them able to see it again more clearly and share it with us. He said that that even though it said he was clear all along, she felt like she was wavering a little bit, because she knows that she had always said the phrase and used it, "Get out of here, leave me alone," when something would bombardment or something, and that it always worked. But she couldn't quite get that clear in her mind with this understanding of genetics that they had. Oh yes, and so the question came up is, does that mean we still have burgers again? And they said, yeah.